welcome to my YouTube channel. I haven't decided what I'm going to call it yet. Doesn't matter anyway, you're here because you're interested in small sidecars. That's what we're going to talk about, that's what I'm going to show you. Now here's what I've done before. This is my prototype. Now before I show you how to build one, and that is going to be coming, we're first going to have a look at what changes we're going to make to this prototype. This is fitted to the Honda NBC110, which is a 110cc Australian postie bike. It's also known as a Cub. I've got some of the plastic work off here because I'm putting a 130 kit on it just to help it pull the sidecar a little bit better. But this is my prototype, and like I say, in this episode we're going to talk about them. In following episodes I'm going to actually show you how to make one. So if you don't want to hear it, just don't listen to this one and go on to the next chapter or the next episode and have a look. But it's for free, so you know what I've learned and has cost me is here for you for a few minutes of your time if you'd like it, not if you don't. Okie dokie. Now the sidecar that we're going to be building for in the next episodes are for the Honda, the predecessor to that bike. We're going to build a sidecar for this, which is the Honda CT110, which is a lovely, 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 lovely bike. I love it. I think it's brilliant. It's got a cult following for good reason. It is greater than the sum of its parts. It does everything reasonably well. Doesn't do anything outstanding. It's not super fast. Doesn't handle really well. But it's light. It's cheap. It's economical. It's reliable. It gets through most things. It's plentiful. It's good fun to ride. It's just greater than the sum of its parts. And that's what I was looking for when I wanted to build a sidecar for it. I just always fancied the idea of making a sidecar for a little bike because I thought it could be good fun. And that's pretty much what this channel's going to be about. It's not going to be a serious one. I haven't won any awards and I haven't set any land speed records. All of this is just going to be for good fun. And having ridden my NBC110 prototype with the sidecar on, I can assure you it's good fun. Flipping dangerous, absolutely. Here's my caveat: be careful, be careful. I've got a GSXR 750. Oh, lovely! What a bike that is! That's just a stunner. That is crazy. That with the sidecar on is crazier. That is, I've come much closer to binning it with that on than I have giving that the berries. So if you're planning on building a sidecar, if you're riding it anywhere near the road, and that is road legal, and the sidecar that we'll be building for this is going to be road legal in Western Australia. I can't vouch for rules everywhere else because they all differ. But the sidecar that we're going to build in for this bike, same as that bike there, is going to be legal to be ridden on the road. But probably shouldn't be. It's insane. It wants to throw you off. You have got to learn a new riding style if you've never ridden a sidecar before, and it basically involves you getting off the bike. Not getting off the bike, but you having to move your bum about a heck of a lot. I'll do some more videos in episodes to come about how to ride it and showing you. I've got an action cam on order, so we'll go out and ride around. I'll show you our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful countryside here in Albany in Western Australia. It's just gorgeous. I live in heaven. And I will show you how to ride it as well. But it takes a lot of work, and if you don't do it, you're going to come off. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, so that said, let's pop this back over here, and I'll get into a sort of evaluation of the NBC110 Sidecar and why it works and why it doesn't work. Okay. Right. First of all, positioning. I was going to say good friends, some people I've never met before. So yeah, brilliant friends on the internet told me that this back wheel here should be sat 17% of the wheelbase forward of this wheel. I've got some marks on the floor. I'll perhaps do a cutaway and show you those. But basically I drew centre line of the, I just drew a line on the floor. I put the motorcycle on top of it, sat upright, and then drew angle out at 90 degree from this rear axle, and then drew 17% forward, which I think off the top of my head was about 23 centimetres, and that's where the back wheel goes. So that's fairly easy to do. Most of this sidecar here is in front of the rear wheel, and there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for this lovely bent tube chassis, and I'll show you what it is. Let's put the brake on. Oh yes, these things come with a park brake. These leave the Honda factory with a park brake, which is just perfect for a sidecar. So, the reason that the reason that the wheel is so far back is because that is where all the weight of your torso would be. So I thought to myself, okay, there'll be, if a person was to sit in here, there'd be a bit of weight from the legs, you know, legs weigh something, but most of the weight would be from the torso, which I wanted placed directly over the axle. Now that said, there is no way I would put anyone I loved in this. No way, Jose. So, the one that I'm going to be making next for the CT110 is not going to be so far forward, because it'd be nuts. Legally, you can put a person in this. I wouldn't. No way. Put a dog in it, and even then I drive it very, very slowly. But no, I would not put somebody that I love in this unless our lives depended on it, or some other reason. I just wouldn't. You can do what you want, but that's my advice anyway. Okay, so the next sidecar that I'm going to build is for a dog to go in. Now I'm just going to dash and get another box. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. So I looked at all sorts of bodies to make the sidecar out of, and I thought, why bother reinventing it? Let's just get a body that's already been made. So here it is. Oh, I should have taken the junk out of it first. This is a tough box. Well, it's actually 3 tough boxes, and they're pretty strong. They're not your normal sort of rubbish, you know, that the bottom breaks out of first time you chuck them anything in them. I decided to make the body for the next sidecar out of tough boxes because I was using one of these as my metal scrap bin. So all my fabrication stuff that was spare lengths and spare offcuts and all that kind of stuff was being dropped into one of these. And it's fine, it's actually this one. And it's got no holes, it's fine too. I've chucked some pretty heavy stuff into this and it's survived. So I thought to myself, why don't I make the sidecar body out of one of these? Considering that the first order I've got is from Debbie in South Australia. Hello. And it's for her to carry her old dog around. So I got one of these and I have cut access in the back for her old puppo to get in and out of. So instead of the sidecar like this, with most of it forward for carrying a passenger, which I hope it never does, I thought the next one, and the one that we're going to build and I'm going to film and show you, and we'll do it together anyway, is going to have the weight more centered over the sidecar wheel, like that, because it's going to have a balanced weight in rather than a human being, which isn't a balanced weight. When a human being sat down, it's not a balanced weight. But this is going to have either this box in when Debbie's got a dog in it, or a complete one with a lid on it for when she's getting her shopping. And we'll work out some way of, well, there's a couple of little holes there to put some catches on or something like that to stop it blowing away, and that should keep her shopping pretty waterproof, pretty safe. And so yeah, so she'll have two bodies, one for a dog, one for a shopping, on her CT110. Now, other consideration was that this is all made out of 25mm 1-inch tube with nice roundy corners like this, again because in my mind, and it's just a prototype, so I don't mind getting things wrong, it would have had a person in it, and these long sweeping bends are very nice, you know, actually isn't that uncomfortable. Just to say a word about size, this is 90 centimetres long, 900mm if you want to engineering terms, and 450 or 45 centimetres wide. And I did that deliberately because I didn't want anyone overloading it. I thought, you know, if I sell this and someone goes and overloads it, and then I read about them in the paper, having, you know, ended it all on something that I built, I'd be a bit sad. Obviously I wouldn't be responsible, but I'd still think, if I'd have made it a bit smaller, perhaps they wouldn't have been able to fit as much in it, and probably would have had less chance of overloading it. So I deliberately made this sidecar small so that A, it doesn't strain the little 110 or 130 as it's going to be motor of this little bike, and also to prevent some idiot from getting his or her big mate in it, or two mates in it, and all going down the road and hurting themselves. So you could put somebody in this, but it won't be anyone any bigger than me, not with that squeeze. Okay, so that explains the reason for the size. Okay, yeah, now next thing I'm going to talk about is the construction for, I'm going to touch on, and I am going to show you how to build this, but it's not going to be in this episode. We're going to start work on it once I've explained why we're doing it, how we're doing it. So, front cradle. The NBC, that's this bike here, doesn't have normally a front cradle. Oh yeah, I know. I'm going to touch on something else as well. So this front cradle here, I've had to make. Okay, it bolts onto the frame there, it goes down, and it bolts onto the footrest, which is bolted to the bottom of the engine. And it all bolts to the bike, and that's for legal purposes. Makes sense anyway, but it's also for legal purposes. As long as this sidecar only bolts to this bike and is not welded in any way, and it isn't, this is counted legally in Western Australia as an accessory. So no different to a screen or a hand guard, it's just an accessory. And the bike still meets the Australian design rules, the ADRs, that it was complied. Fingers crossed, it looks like a pass. He hasn't said no so far. He still can. He's got to check it, and as expected, this is the first sidecar he's done, but he's asked the right questions. If he passes it, it's a pass, and I don't think it'll be through ignorance. It's all got to go through a computer, so there's a second check for it anyway. I actually didn't need to get this inspected. I took it and got it inspected anyway. I didn't need to. I actually only needed to just inform the Department of Transport that I had fitted this accessory, and they would have said, okay, thank you very much. It's going to cost you. Of course, it always costs you, but they didn't need to inspect it. But when I took this, I actually put this bike was unregistered. When I took it with the sidecar on to get it registered from the outset as a sidecar, and it passed first time. And better than that, the examiner had not tested one before, so he wasn't entirely 100% sure of his judgments and his decision to pass it. I'm just going to move this. Just in case it's in the way. It wasn't 100%, so what he did is he asked the Department of Transport to audit his work. So he sent his findings and some photos off to the head office of the Department of Transport in Perth and said to them, words along the lines of, "You sure? Just check I've done this right." And they sent back the pass saying, "Yes, you are correct. It is legal to go on the road." So didn't even need to do any of that, but nevertheless went to the trouble of asking as many people as I could whether it was safe. So this is not flying under the radar. This is not hoping I don't get caught. This is all legit. I can park this outside the police station. I've got all the paperwork for it. Okay, so going back to, so we know about why it's bolted on. So following on from why it's bolted on, let's look at where it's bolted on. There's no front cradle on the front of the NBC110. It just doesn't have anything. So I had to make this front cradle in order to fasten the front of the sidecar on. Now, if you consider that the one that we're going to build in the forthcoming episodes is going to be further back. I'll put the box away again. Okay, I'll use the lid. That still gives you an idea of the size. Okay, so you can see, and the CT is going to be the same size as this, by the way. So you can see that the sidecar that we're going to build is going to be this long and this wide. It doesn't need to go all the way to there because it barely comes past the front seat. Well, the front of the seat. So we don't need this cradle because we don't need these bars because it doesn't need to come this far forward. Now, it does need to come, I don't know whether this is getting in shot, so just to remove some of the need for some of the cutaways, I'm going to move the sidecar instead. Okay, so one thing that can't move in order for the wheel to be in the position that I've already talked about, the 17% forward of that wheel, is this spring. I've got a cracking suspension idea, I have to say. I'm not a humble guy, I'm not overly humble. I don't hide my light under a bushel, but I'm really chuffed with this suspension idea, and mainly because I really can't think of where. If I've nicked it from someone else, I couldn't tell you where. It's not like a Led Zeppelin song. I really have got no idea. If I've seen this somewhere before, I can't remember. You'd have to take me back through regression or something like that. I can tell you where I've seen elements of this suspension design when I get into it, but as far as I know, it's mine. It's my idea. Right, so, and for it to work, this suspension leaf, this quarter elliptic spring, which isn't my idea, but this quarter elliptic spring needs to be there. So the furthest back that this can be is just there. Yeah, so the spring's going to be there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the front of this box to just there. So that's where it's going to be, okay? A lot more central. Now this box is a little bit deeper than this, by the way. It sits a little bit taller, so although if, you know, in case you're thinking, oh, that's losing a bit of the length, it is losing a bit of the length. That said, this is unnecessarily long for what it's going to be used for. What the next sidecar is going to be used for. The next sidecar is going to be for a dog and shopping. Ooh. So it doesn't need to be this long. Okay. Right, I'm going to move the camera and I'm going to get into the suspension. I should just pull this up and bring you closer and show you how it works. And feel free to copy it. If you can steal all my ideas, if you could just give me a like at the end of it, that'd be good. Or a thumbs down if you're just going to take it for nothing. But yeah, it's an original idea. Right, I'm going to press stop, I'm going to move the camera and we'll get into the suspension. And then in following episodes, I'm going to actually take you through cutting and bending and welding the whole thing together. I'm just going to say a quick word on my qualification in terms of why you should or shouldn't listen to me. I'm a motorcycle engineer. I had my skills assessed by the Institute of Automotive Mechanical Engineers. They've assessed my skills. I haven't been trained as a motorcycle engineer. I picked up my skills along the way and went to the Institute of Automotive Mechanical Engineers and said, do you think I'm up to scratch? And they talked to me and sat me some tests and sat me down and listened to what I thought about motorcycles, and their chief examiner there said, yep, you know as much as anyone. And then they, like I say, gave me the right to practice as a registered motorcycle engineer in Western Australia with the government. So I'm above board. Fabrication, no. Not pretending to be a welder. Not pretending to be ace fabricator, boiler maker, as we all like to say over here. I'm not. I'm just not. Not that it matters. For this construction, it is strong enough. I will show you video of me having a right good time on it. I've tested this with 50 litres of water on it, which weighs 50 kilograms. I have tested this with as much weight as this engine can pull over some fairly rough terrain, and it's fine. And I've tested it for a period of time. It's strong enough. So, any welders who want to say, oh my god, what is he doing, what's he doing? Yeah, okay, I've seen better welds, I have. These are sufficient. Okay, and hopefully you can weld better, you can do an even better job. But the design is pretty good. Right, so that said, I'm going to move the camera. Okay. Righto, okay, first off, I'm going to put the brake on so it doesn't move. Now I'm going to take the floor out, which is pretty easy to do. I was going to fasten it in, but it just comes out so easily. I don't see the point. But it doesn't go anywhere while you're driving it. Okay, so here we are. Now, I'm a big fan of Volkswagens, and There's probably elements of Volkswagen suspension in this design, but it's not torsion bar. No, it's not torsion bar. I also was getting quite into off-road rock crawling and stuff in my Land Rover, and looked at, I don't know who invented them, but it was an American design anyway, for quarter elliptic springs, which is, bear with me, one of these, this is a leaf spring, a lightweight leaf spring, cut in half. So this spring here is just one of these cut just there. And the reason for it is because on your Volkswagen Beetle and your Volkswagen Bus, you've got a swing axle where the wheel actually moves in an arc, so it doesn't move up and down, remaining perfectly perpendicular to the road, or even with its slight camber off. Anyway, it doesn't move in a perfect plane like that. It actually swings, which is why it's called a swing axle. And the Volkswagen suspension, it pivots at the gearbox. Apart from the IRS, the early ones then. So here we've got a solid axle. This is a solid axle, but I've put a rod end on the end of it so that this end of the axle here, there we go. Actually, it's probably easier if I just don't say anything and just bounce up and down on it. Okay, so pivot, axle, spring, damper. Okay, so we've only got, and I'm not sure overly whether this is overly necessary, by the way, either. I put, it's actually a steering damper. It was the cheapest way of making putting an adjustable damper on it. This was about $50 off eBay, and it's adjustable. And I can even adjust it while I'm riding. I can just reach over and do it up or knock it off a bit. I'm not convinced that it makes any difference, and I know, well, not everyone, but I know a lot of people go, oh, because a lot of people have already said to me via Facebook and that sort of stuff, where I've sort of first talked about this. Oh, you've got to fit a damper, you've got to fit a damper. You don't have to fit a damper on trailers. So, you know, a damper would be nice, but I can't say as I can overly feel its effectiveness. It might do, it might not do. It's not revolutionary. It's not like on a car when your damper's stuffed and wow, you're bouncing down the road. This whole thing bounces down the road. Dampers or not, this is not a well-handling machine. So I put one on, but in terms of the critical components of this suspension system, we've really just got this one axle and this quarter elliptic spring. So both the axle and the spring are working as control arms. So both these components are dual purpose, so that we've got just very few components, greater than the sum of its parts. That's what I wanted. And it works. It really does work. You can see it working. Now I've tried, this isn't the first thing I've built. I've tried using rubber torsion and all sorts of other things, and I've seen all sorts of designs for, torsion bars with inboard springs and all that kind of stuff in the past from different manufacturers and home manufacturers too, and they just strike me as overly complicated. This works with the fewest amount of components that I've ever seen, so for that reason I'm fairly chuffed with it. I'm fairly proud of myself for that. Not so much for the welds. Ooh, don't look at that one. So not so much for the welding, but the design is not bad at all. Okay, right. Sidecar bolts on there as well. Let me move that handle just in case that's in the way. Okay, so going back to where we're bolted on. The one on the CT, the old bike there. The sidecar, I should have radiused those. I will radius these. Everything else on this is radiused, so that, you know, that's scruffy, that is, that's cuffy. Not overly proud of that. That's normally covered, by the way. It's normally covered by the rack, so that's the most that you'll ever see that. It's normally hidden, but would equally normally be radiused. I don't work like that most of the time. This is a prototype. But yes, we will be bolting on the CT, same as we are on the NBC, to the top shock mount. It's just strong place to put it. And you can probably see from there, this tube disappearing here. This tube is going straight through the centre of the frame, where the centre stand used to be. You don't need a centre stand when you've got a sidecar, because it's not going to fall over. So I took the centre stand off to reduce weight. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And the rear brake pivots on this, but this 19mm tube here goes right the way through the centre of the bike frame at a very strong point, because the centre stand of this bike is a strong place, because it needs to be, basically, for you to hold the bike up. So that's a good strong point to put that through. There's a good strong to bolt that to, and I've made the cage there, so that's right. The CT is going to be a little bit different, but we'll get into that. I want to come back to weight. I made this light and was thinking about lightness all the time. No need at all. It works better with a bit of weight on it. So I did this out of practice tube. I think this is 1.6mm wall tubing, and I thought, it could be okay for a prototype. We'll see how it goes. I expect it to break and crack, and I'll just use it as an opportunity to hone my design. Well, it's okay. Sacrificial testing is perfectly reasonable experience, but it's fine. It's just fine. It's absolutely no problem at all. And like I say, I've punished it. I'm happy. This wall thickness, as far as I'm concerned, is thick enough, but it isn't necessary. So I've bought 2mm wall for future fabrications, just because there's no point in scrimping and making it lightweight, although that's what your instinct is telling you, because it's a motorcycle. Got to make it light, got to make it light. Nope, not with the sidecar. A little bit of weight on it's better. I also think this would have benefited from being out a little bit that way. This is very narrow, but this does fit onto a standard 6 by 4 foot trailer. So this is nice and easy too. It's nice and portable. But I just physically didn't like the idea of the really wide trailers. Really wide sidecars. I just thought to myself, that looks a bit ungainly. So this is more gainly, if that's a real word. I've got the wheel. I haven't got the wheel here with me. It's in the other shed. But my choice of wheels, I had previously, the first wheel that I chose for this was a small boat trailer wheel, and it was wide. It was 4 inches wide. It was a tiny little wheel, but it was only 10 inches. And because I was a big fan of the 10 inch, because I've got the 10-inch wheels on the Vespa, and I thought, yeah, that wheel's big enough. But I ended up going with 3 equal size wheels. So all the wheels on this bike are 17 inch, and the CT will be the same. And I think the whole thing rides a lot better than I expect the small 10-inch boat trailer wheel would have done. It was all a bit of guesswork. I never actually tried it out. I just bought the wheel, put it next to it, and thought, yeah, maybe not. That's not such a good idea. So I just didn't go any further with it. I just did the old eye test. I looked at it and went, nah, maybe not. I thought it was a bit too heavy, but looking back, heaviness is not necessarily your enemy in a sidecar. A little bit of weight helps you keep this wheel here on the ground, which is what you want to do. Okay, all right. I'm going to move on from that choice of wheel and talk about Yeah, I'm going to get a wheel out of the packet and show you how we do the wheel. Okay, it was nice to have a bit of junk in the background. Right, wheels. So, not quite as easy as just plonk your wheel on the side of it. So here's my wheel as it arrives from China, from Baligo on eBay. It looks good in black actually. I had a bit of a upset with them because I did say, hey, I didn't ask for it in black. I wanted it in silver so that it matches the rest of the bike. But I have to say, it's fairly modern, isn't it? Anyway, the axle on this wheel that is for a pit bike and is designed for a bike like this is 12 millimeters in diameter. Well, that's not much good if you're only holding it from one side. So you see there, we've got a 12 mil place for a 12 mil axle, which, like I say, is absolutely fine if you're holding it from both sides, like so. But we're not. We're holding it from one side. So we're not having a 12 millimeter axle, but we are restricted by what axle we can put in here. That's 37 mil. That's a standard 37 millimeter bearing. Now, the most readily accessible 37 millimeter diameter bearing I could get with a big internal has got 20 mil. So if I hold that in front of the camera, hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to kick out the bearings, the old bearings that is, the bearings that came with it, that are 20, 37. We're going to kick them out. We're going to put in, I said 20, 37, didn't I? We're going to kick out these 12, 37 bearings, and we're going to put in 20, 37 bearings, so that we can have a 20 mil axle. And by the time we're holding this wheel just from one side with a 20 mil axle, we're good to go. It's got less chance of bending than a 12 millimeter. You get that, don't you? Yeah, I don't need to go over that. You've said that enough already now. We understand. We understand, Loz. Okay. So, you've understood, you've got the type of wheel, you've got the size of the bearing, for the size of the axle, you've got the type of spring, you've got the connection on the end of it, which is a rod end. And, oh, I'll show you that rod end. I've got one of those on the shelf. 2 seconds, don't go away. So, here is the spherical rod end. And this, remember I said that works like a swing arm. So that is to say, it doesn't just go up and down, because it's tied, because that's tied there and there. This suspension moves in an arc, like that. Pivots there, goes up and forward because it's anchored there. So it needs extra movement. So that's why we've got a spherical rod end that's greasable on that end of it. Okay, I talked to you about towing now and how that works and why that works. Okay, do not adjust your television set. This axle is not parallel to this bar here. It's not poor design, it's not something to do with the camera lens, it's what's called toe in. So you can see that that gap there is bigger than that gap there. That's because this is at an angle and this axle is at an angle so that the front of this wheel is in more than the back. So this wheel's at an angle, exaggerating it, is like my arm. So and that's called toe in. Now, hang on. So, if you look at where the spring is, obviously it's at that end there, but we've got this nice long flat bit, which is called a slipper. It's called a slipper spring. And I've decided to use this flat bit of the slipper spring to mount my axle on because I can slide the axle forwards or backwards along this flat bit to give it greater or lesser toe in. That said, I haven't adjusted it. I've done a couple of 100Ks on it, it's fine. But that is partially because I knew at the outset, I was advised by some Facebook people I don't know who I'm still grateful to, that it wanted to be toe in, so I just did it. But I built in that adjustment in case I hadn't done it enough, but I had. So you can do the same. I'm going to do the same on, I'm going to do it on the next one, on the CT Sidecar. It's going to be the same. It's going to have that adjustment. Just in case, as years go by, I suddenly decide, yes, let's see what more toe in does. But it's fine. Currently it's fine. The other thing that I did in terms of the spring is I didn't know how much it was going to move. So you see that we've got the slipper spring. This is the lightest spring that I could get. This is a 260 kilogram pair of springs. So it would be fairly safe to expect that each spring will hold 130. I did say 260, so yeah, half of that's going to be 130. So let's assume that this spring, it doesn't say on it anywhere 160, anyway, but it does. So what I did is I thought, well, I'll still buy one that's got 2 leaves, because if it's not moving enough, I can just get rid of one of the leaves, just bugger it off. Oh, I swore. Is it still suitable for kids? And the other thing that I could have done, if I wanted to, was because I cut the spring about there, I could have used some of the offcut to add a leaf. So as well as removing a leaf if I wanted to give it more movement, I could have added a leaf from the bit that I'd cut off to have it move less. But again, I'm just happy with it how it is. It just works okay. It's just not a problem. Now it works good for what I want it for, and so far that's been pretty much just hooning around the countryside with some camping gear on it. I'm not putting a person in it. Come too close for getting it wrong in terms of tipping it over. But for camping gear and that kind of stuff, it's just great. It's great fun. So I think you're up to speed. The lights and things, you don't want me to patronise you with you've got to have lights on it, because you know, if you don't know that your vehicle's now this wide and it now needs lights to show any traffic that you're sharing the road with that you are this wide, and at night as well. So even if you're thinking during the day, surely they can see. Yeah, they can, but your bike still has to be available. Your sidecar has to be capable of working at night, so it needs to have lights. Your indicator obviously now needs to be on the sidecar, because if it was indicating there, where its original position was, it would still look to the person behind you like you were indicating right, because that is still further right than the centre line of the vehicle. So move that indicator all the way over there. Same with the front one. And a front white marker light, so that in the darkness people can see that you're this wide. There's your tail light, so that you can see both of those braking. You've got a rear reflector here. I put a side reflector on it, just down there, an amber side reflector, and just because I thought, look, bikes have one, so it makes sense to me for a sidecar to have one there. And that's about it. I'm not winning any awards for my paintwork or for my welding, but I am happy with my design, and so is Debbie, because she's going to pay me to make her one. So thank you for that, Debbie, really appreciate that. More than anything, it validates some of the time I spend mucking around in the workshop, not generating a dollar. So I will be more inclined to do more projects. I'm been doing this sort of thing, these sort of nonsense projects for, no, that's not a bad name for a channel, nonsense projects, for a long time. So I've got a big back catalogue of things that I've made and tried, and I'm happy to show you. Most of them are static photographs though, so that'll be a bit boring. So instead, now thanks to the miracles of the moving image, we'll do some more and some fresh ideas. I do want to keep things fresh. Like I say, I haven't invented the sidecar and I haven't invented the wheel, but I've only ever seen one other decent sidecar. I've had people on Facebook show me pictures of one guy's, if you're watching, send me pictures of a shopping trolley he's welded to the side of his bike. Come on. You know, although this is supposed to be laugh, it's supposed to have an element of engineering prowess in it. It's not just a shopping trolley welded on the side that shouldn't go anywhere near the road. So yeah, so I've got some good ideas. I've got some other bikes behind that we can do. Some of it will depend on what people want to see, and some of it will depend on how many likes and things I get. I'm probably going to do it anyway. Well, no, not probably. I'm going to do it anyway, because that's all I can do. I can't catch a fish and I can't kick a ball. So I am going to turn these bikes. I've got a RC30 replica, if that means anything to anyone. I've got a Z900 that I'm going to turn into a CR900, Rickman CR900 copy, if that means anything to anyone. And I've got a dozen other bits and bobs that will crop up in the past. And I've got Volkswagens outside, and yeah, if I don't get too much hate mail in the comments, I will continue doing it, and you can join me. And if you've got any suggestions, things that you'd like to see, or any stylistic improvements or anything like that, stick something in the comments. And like I say, if it's not too derogatory, I'll act on it, and I will adapt and evolve as you guys would like me to. Take care, and next episode will be marking out some metal and cutting some metal. Thanks for watching.